run. That is all he could do. Just run. Run and hope that the hall would brighten and the door at the end would appear. But it didn't. So instead, he kept running to find the door. He slowed down and stopped, suddenly out of breath. He put his hands on his knees and coughed, trying desperately to regain his breath. But he felt as though no matter how much he breathed in, he would still feel as though he were drowning. His eyes drifted to the side of the hallway where one of the large windows sat illuminated by the moon. He shook his head and regained his thoughts before finally sinking to the ground against the wall, opposite of the luminous window. He had tried to get out. He walked one way for a very long time. When he gave up on that, he turned around and started walking the other way. His bare feet had gotten sore after the first long walk, but he could feel the blisters forming at the start of his second. He only started running after he saw the monster. It was slow, so that gave him plenty of time to run away from it. He knew he could only hide from it for so long. It wasn't the first time he'd seen it. There were no other doors in the hallway. The only apparent way out was through the window. That wasn't an option, however, as when he looked out the window he couldn't see the ground. He couldn't see anything, for that matter. Down the hall came the faint sound of footsteps as they echoed through the empty corridor. He sighed and banged his head lightly against the wall. His break was over. He pushed himself up using the wall and took a careful step forward. As soon as his foot hit the ground, he yelped in pain. He finally looked down at his bare feet, only to realize they had been torn to ribbons by the blisters that had formed and popped while he was running. He leaned back against the wall and listened to the heavy footsteps of his greatest fear. They are closer now. Another few minutes, and it'll come into view through the veil of darkness. He knew he couldn't run or hide. This always happened, no matter what he did to try to change it. He pushed off the wall and staggered forward, wincing and grimacing with every step. His eyes conjured tears that were made up of pain and fear. He didn't want to see it again. He couldn't see it again. He just had to get to the window. He dragged himself gingerly onto the table sitting underneath the window. A table that wasn't there a moment ago, but was always there when he was ready. He pushed himself up and grabbed the window for support. At that moment he realized the sound of footsteps had stopped. There was only silence. He started to shake as his body turned involuntarily around, making eye contact with the boy on the ground. He looked dead, the boy on the ground. His body looked mangled. How he was walking at an even pace was still a mystery to the boy on the table. But the boy on the table started to cry harder once he looked into the eyes of the boy on the ground. They were beyond dead. There was nothing in them. No hope, no love, no life. The boy on the ground glanced at the window beside the boy on the table, asking a silent question. The boy on the table nodded in response, and the other responded with a tilt of his head, as if to ask why. The boy on the table shook his head as his tears increased again. He quickly turned towards the window and opened it. There was no wind, and no cold, only air. He took a breath and turned around to look into the eyes of the boy on the ground. The boy walked towards him, as he tried to get farther away by standing on the windowsill of the large window. The boy on the ground grinned as he grabbed hold of the ankles of the boy on the windowsill. The boy froze completely as he looked into the eyes of the monster. His own eyes. The monster looked up at the boy with its evil grin and finally spoke before pulling the boy's ankles, throwing him out of the building as its final words echoed into the night. No matter what you do, you will always end up becoming me.